Yo, yo, yo. Good morning, everybody. Morning, Oki, Cloud, Igor, Jafar, Shahir. Will, what's up? Yeah, if you guys can like the video, please, 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 I appreciate it. Everybody can hear me well? Sound good? Sound alright? Sounds good. Appreciate you. Thank you, Jeff. Good morning. Not Jeff, Brett. Mantis, what's up? Just making sure all my charts are good. Members, what's up? How are you? How's the inauguration party? I didn't watch it, but looks like everything's going well. Come on, people, we're at 16 likes. We can like the video. I know y'all can. Jafar, don't worry. This is yesterday's cup. I had half a coffee and I poured the rest of my coffee that I made this morning inside of this. But yesterday's was cold brew, double shot espresso. That's how much I'm addicted to coffee. Cold. I can drink it cold or hot. I made this one cold just because it's in plastic. I don't want to burn it. Coffee's good for you. Mantis, yeah, I mean, coffee for me is jet fuel. I love it. How do you do cold brew and espresso? I don't know. I mean, cold brew is usually a lot, but I mean, I have to do cold brew and 2 shots espresso. Number 1 ICT trader. Yeah, I just put that on there just for whatever. Looks like ICT is fully retired. We'll talk about that later. But he's kind of signed his, I don't know what you'd call it. He resigned. He resigned fully. That I haven't seen that one before. That was a little out there. If we can get this to, let's just say 30 likes, which is 4 more likes, I'll just start it. Because we're already at 26. We're about to open. There we go. All right. So, if you watched the weekly forecast yesterday, we're talking about a few things and a few scenarios and what we could see out of this week. I talked about the SMT between ES and NQ currently. Do I believe that is going to hold true? I mean, it could, but we'll just have to see. And I was talking about last night the idea of potentially running for this high up here or running for the low down here. And it just depends on really what dollar index and a few other things want to give us this week. Talked about how ES is inside of its premium, same with NQ. So if you're not aware, let's go over to ES real quick. ES has made a higher high here, which doesn't automatically mean anything. It could just mean that ES is really leading it. And we're going to see NQ do the same here shortly. Or we could see that S&T divergence hold true, and then we see NQ sell off. So I think last night really gave a good description of what I was thinking in my thought process. I'm not entirely sold on one side or the other just yet. I kind of have to wait and see the information on what we open like this week. Obviously, a clear indication of one side being traded to is a closure. I mean, if we close above this high here at Monday, January 6th, then obviously I have to start looking for higher prices. Currently where we're at, though, I can't make that call. We have this sell side of balance here, reclaimed that we're inside of. Yes, we've created relative equal highs, which may be a target, but we do have S&T there that could support it. We have intermarket relationships that are a little uncertain as well, so I don't have full clarity. And that's where I use intermarket relationships to my advantage if it's there to try to determine, okay, are we going to trade higher? Are we going to trade lower? S&T helps in there as well. When you look at intermarket relationships, when you look at S&T, these things help guide you on the higher time frames when you're uncertain as far as where it's going. Are we very relatively near this high? Yes, we could very well trade to it, but because of intermarket relationships, because of S&T, we could very well, since we're still within the boundaries of bearish order flow, we could still seek lower prices out of this. That's a very well possibility. We'll just see how we open. I'm not sold entirely on one side. I mean, gun to my head, I would probably pick higher prices just because of what order flow is really giving me and how close we are to this buy side here. It would make sense that we should seek higher prices. I mean, that's just what I'm leaning on. But if I do see lower prices out of it, I mean, I wouldn't be entirely surprised or caught off guard. RTH gap will be underneath and whatnot filled, so maybe we'll see low price. Yep. Morning, Harris. Hope you're doing well. If you guys can like the video, if you're just tuning in, I appreciate it. So we just opened in here, and I'm going to be very patient with today, especially coming off of a holiday, coming off of inauguration, which was yesterday. I would just be very patient with it. I wouldn't be trying to push it right off the bat. Anytime you're coming off of a holiday, especially, it's good to note. Usually ICD says it's probably not a good day to trade, to be honest with you. But yesterday wasn't a full holiday. We still had some movement out of yesterday. So, yes, system revolution. I mean, that's a good thing to know, right? Anytime there's a holiday, like on a Monday, it's typically a Monday, and we roll into that Tuesday, typically that day's a little less probable. Doesn't mean it's untradeable, it's impossible, but it is to note that it can be a little bit more difficult. It can be a little less willing to expand and do things that you're normally used to seeing. So just make note of that. Hourly time frame, again, we dropped into this inversion here. And yesterday we dropped, or at least last night when we opened again, technically, we dropped down into this discount, took out the internal sell side, and we expanded higher. If we're going to seek higher prices, 21,805 would be it, and then 21,898 would be it. So we'll see what today provides. If I see the evidence, then I will be looking for higher prices out of this. Again, you would have to watch the weekly forecast to get a full idea. I know somebody's going to ask you what my bias is and what I'm thinking. Go to the weekly forecast. That's usually where my mind's at. Or the beginning of these videos. That's usually where I'm placing my bias or my narrative for the session. And then if something changes, of course, I'll go with it. So we'll just sit and watch, see what, again, don't be so eager to jump into a Monday morning after a holiday. Be very patient, be very still. Man, I did a lot of psychology work yesterday too. Kind of brought back some. I really this year want to really dig deep, man. Like the most I ever have into terms of psychology. I mean, I know a lot of you know me for that, but I want to go even deeper into it and really nail down. This one next to me, I have again Mental Game of Trading. This book here. I always have next to me. I have a lot of note cards. I mean, you're not going to be able to see them, but I have a lot of note cards that have a lot of writings and sayings and phrases. I'll have to go over that. I've been meaning to do a psychology podcast. I just really haven't found the time to do it. But man, this type of stuff, man, I wish the more and more I get into this game, the more deep I go into it. I don't want to go into a huge rant, but I just really want to make note of variables, probabilities, and control. I mean, it's really what I was looking at last night, like really, really deeply. Is once you let go of the idea of like having control, and people want to place this emphasis, especially within these concepts of we have so much control, and I know even ICT hypes it up, and you know, I'm not saying these concepts aren't amazing and they're the best thing you could possibly get to, but at one point you have to realize that basically you have no control. You know, you have a model, you have a bias, you execute on it, and everything else is outside of your control, and the rest is just variables and probabilities. And what does that do for you? Because a lot of people would be like, well, that's a lot of like, I feel out of control. I feel like I don't have any control, and I don't have that feeling of being able to make money. But when you let go of that idea and you let variables and probabilities and mathematics come into play, it gives you this sense of relief that, well, even when I am losing, that all that is taken care of in terms of mathematics and variables and probabilities is if I just put that in my forefront of my mind, everything else dissipates. All the worry, all the anxiety about being on losing streaks or taking losses or being right, all that dissipates. It all just goes away. And you could just focus on executing the model and relying on variables and just blame it on variables and probabilities. Say, look, it's all variables, probabilities. Everything else will play out if I just trust it. That the more and more I just go into deeper psychology, that's really when I look at I was paying attention to some deep veterans. Man, I know they don't trade like us and they don't have the precision, but these people make more money than any really ICT traders ever really made. I mean, probably there's a couple hidden ones, but and I know he hasn't been around that long, but when you really, really look at it, man, look at these veterans that trade, support and resistance, and they trade EMAs and all this stuff that really, if you want to be cocky about it and egotistical, it has no logic. It has nothing to do with anything that we know. But yet they're still profitable. Yet they still make money. That should give you some sort of confidence, because then you just look at it as, well, simply it's just basic mathematics and probabilities. That's all it is. I know I'm going to go on a rant, but that's basically what I was doing over the weekend. Yes, typical Monday morning decoupled. ES is trading higher, NQ is not trading as high. That's the boring stuff that nobody wants to listen to, but yet it's the stuff that actually makes you profitable. I want to know how to enter in a fair value gap, and when's the silver bullet? When's the... You're searching for the wrong things, my friend. You're searching for the wrong things. Yes, we would classify this as a Monday, technically. If you guys can like the video, I appreciate it. We're only at 50 likes. How long I've been trading? 7 years now. Opening range gap is going to be beneath us as well. If it'll load. Hello? Well, our opening range gap is going to be here, so basically about 40% of it currently. I'm just not loading. Excuse me, I had to sneeze. So that's our opening range gap here. We just dropped into about 50% of it. So make note. Again, everybody's probably freaking out. Probably, I don't know what to do. The price is moving. You're 8 minutes into the session, dude. Chill out. Look at NQ and look at ES. What is NQ doing? NQ made what? Made a lower low than ES, right? ES didn't make that lower low. NQ did. What does that mean? Well, that's a bullish S&T. Does that mean that we're automatically bullish? No. But it's just an observation, right? It's like, okay, note that. Something to annotate and note. If you start seeing higher prices and evidence of that, it's like, okay, well, that's an S&T there. We had a bullish bias, sort of, that was built. So if things start to play out, that would help it. Now, on the other hand, if we don't see any sort of bullish reaction and NQ keeps trading lower, then you want to see if ES is willing to join it. If you want to see ES eventually make that lower low that NQ did, right? Whenever I spot S&P and I just say, okay, annotate that, observe it, that's all you're doing. You're just annotating and observing it. Because I already, going into a session and going into a day, I already have an idea for probably both sides. I always state this, is to have an open mind to both perspectives of the market. Say, look, it could trade here. It could either trade to the buy side or it could trade to the sell side. Obviously, there's times where I say a lot of evidence is stacked on one side. I'm favoring this side. This is what I'm going to go towards, and obviously execute a model based off of that. But I'm always open to both sides because I'm always looking at it through a two-sided perspective. So yesterday, if you go to the weekly forecast, I gave you a bearish perspective. I also gave you a bullish one. I said, if I start seeing evidence for this, then I'll lean towards this. If I go see evidence for this, I'll lean towards this bias. So if you're studious last night and you watched the weekly forecast, what was my evidence for lower prices? Why would I be thinking that? Would I be surprised if I saw it happen? No. So if you're only focused on bullish, if you're only focused on that, and you're like, man, we gotta trade to the buy side today, and now you're seeing this play out, you're like, oh, I don't know what to do, man. Then you're caught off guard. That's why I like looking at both sides. So I'm never caught off guard. So, okay, well, this is why this is happening. And there's obviously, you can't always be correct. That's why I say at times you just have to let mathematics and probabilities play out, because it is what it is at times. You're going to have a bias, you think it's going to go to one side, and you trade it, and it doesn't work. I used to place so much emphasis on being right, and I still do. I think that's it's not a bad thing to have in terms of personality, or a trading personality is always wanting to be right, always wanting to be correct. But at the end of the day, there's only so much control that you have, and you just have to let yourself be okay with not being correct all the time. Sell side's resting underneath here, which is what? Where's the time at? That's London session lows in here, which is resting underneath the new week opening gap. Looks like we're filling in the entirety of the opening range gap. And while this is happening, I want you to make note of ES. All right, we'll go over to it just so you can see it. So I want you to make note of this low in here at 7 o'clock. So my crosshair is on the right screen. Look at your left screen. Where's ES at? ES is nowhere near this low, right? So what does that mean? Well, that can mean a lot of things, but currently where we sit, that's a bullish S&T currently, right? Now, that could also mean that eventually ES will trade off lower into this low down here. And if that was true, then guess what? Since NQ's already lower, NQ will seek a lot lower prices. It'll be a lot lower than where ES is. If ES reaches this low, then that means NQ is probably somewhere down here. Means that NQ is the weaker one. So you have to just observe these things, notate them. Hopefully it makes sense. I know I get a lot of questions over S&T and how to utilize it. Roberto, yes, there is SMT in the higher time frame as far as bearish. That's, again, if you're to look at SMT and say, well, which one is going to work and how do I know which one should I trust? Well, the higher time frame is always the parent and lower time frames are the children. So if the higher time frame is in line with the overall bias and narrative, then you have to kind of lean with that SMT. What's the difference between SMT and Six Sister? Well, SMT is it's part of Six Sister. Six Sister really means that, well, if one is already, like let's say NQ right now, right? NQ's already made new lows. It's already taken out sell side. If you were to look at ES and say, well, I believe ES is going to trade off lower too. So it would be the Six Sister, meaning that eventually it's going to join NQ to attack the 7 a.m. low. So then you'd be wanting to trade ES short into that low because you can already see that NQ already did it. So, excuse me. It's looking at the one that hasn't traded to a certain draw in liquidity yet, while one has already. So you're trading the one that hasn't. Yeah, you are. Thank you. What's this down close candle here? So that would be your bearish breaker, right? Potentially. You have a high, a low, you have a higher high, and then you have a lower low here. So your down close candle there, that would be your bearish breaker within the sell side imbalance. If you look at a 1 minute perspective, we can mark up that bearish breaker, but if you refine the 1 minute, I'm looking at the inversion within the breaker. That just kind of sticks out to me. So that area right there, as long as I know I'm looking at my 5 minute, I'm going to look at that area there. I'm also going to look at the sell side imbalance inside of that area. The reason I'd be looking at that is because of this dealing range. From that high down to this low, equilibrium sitting right here. So these sell side imbalances, the breaker, all that's within a premium. And again, I'm not entirely sold on the higher time frame just yet. I don't really know for a clear fact if we're going to seek these higher prices or not. So do I see a bearish model in here? Yes. But on the flip perspective, price could have just dropped down in here and taken sell side and returned into the new week opening gap. There's bullish SMT to support that we could potentially see higher prices. That is a possibility. So when higher time frames a little unclear, and it's a bit difficult at times to figure out which side it's going to pick, these are with the lower time frames a little bit harder to trust because you're going to see models on both sides and it's going to be like, well, which one's going to work, which one's true. And that's just where you have to wait for either more evidence, more time. We're only 17 minutes into the session, and think about how many people are, especially if they didn't trade yesterday, are really fidgety to make a move. They have to click a button, they have to do something, man. They waited 3 days to not trade. Man, they're itching to do something in here. That's most people. So make note of what ES is doing, right? What is ES doing currently in this moment of time as we're sitting here at 9:47? ES is almost about to make a higher high. Right? ES is flying. What does that mean? Well, they're a little bit decoupled, and that almost supports the idea of a potential bullish SMT in here, where we know before all this that there's a bullish SMT. So ES is about to make, it just made a higher high. Now, again, this may confuse people, but this is how we're reading the market. That's a bearish SMT. On the flip side, that could also mean that ES is just simply leading this whole thing, and NQ will start to seek higher prices. Why? Because of the higher price bias that we built up last night that could potentially end up being true. To be honest, I lean towards higher prices overall more than anything, just because it probably makes the most sense where we're at. So if you see ES just continuously keep pressing higher and higher and you don't see any drop in it, then it's probably true that we're going to keep seeing higher prices. So currently ES is leading NQ. Much like earlier where NQ is leading ES lower. One of these will end up being true, and you'll see one of them lead one or the other. If you're just tuning in, I'd appreciate it if you'd like the video. About 150 you guys in here. So in that moment of time where ES is making this new high, right? That's where I'm starting to look at it and go, well, that bearish model that potentially was there, I don't really favor it as much anymore. That's not something I love. Hi from South Africa. Hello from America. So we're dropping down into this buy side imbalance. We'll see if that gives support for potentially higher prices. So what I want you to make note of currently is how there's a lot of different sides currently. What you're seeing me do is I'm reading both sides of the market right now. I can see a bearish model, I can see a bullish model, I see a lot of evidence for bearish, I see a lot of evidence for bullish. What does that mean? I don't force anything. I could try to force something and end up being, look like I'm the smart dude here. I could also force something and take a loss and be like, well, I'm a dumbass. In here is just to chill. Eventually, it will probably pan out to where it'll give me enough evidence within a moment of time to say, look, I probably am going to bet on this side. This is the side that I believe is going to work. That's what I mean is, a lot of the times in my earlier years in these conditions, I would just be forcing a lot of ideas. I'd be forcing. But A, we're only 20 minutes into the session. And B, there's a lot of evidence for both sides. And if you don't think that, then that's fine. But I can clearly, with my logic and experience, see that. So it just means to just chill. Just wait. Just chill out. I'm going to wait for the perspective that I believe is going to work out if I see the evidence for it. If I don't see any evidence that's really stacked on one side that's favorable, then I'm not going to do nothing. Let me give you an example of currently what I'm, if you're not following along with what I'm stating, and I'm sure some of you are. I could see where we're returning into a premium here to potentially sell off. There's also an SMT at the highs that we just printed, where ES made a higher high above this high at 9 o'clock, and NQ has failed to do that, right? I could also see the perspective of where there's a bullish SMT at the bottom here. NQ made a lower low, ES failed to make that. We expanded higher, we're dropping down in this buy side imbalance, and we could extend higher. How do I know which one is true, CJ? Well, in a better higher time frame condition where I can see one side is very favorable, then I could trust this one side, one or the other, and say, look, this is the side I'm rolling with because the higher time frame is the parent to this right now. But as I discussed last night, the higher time frame is still a little bit unclear to me. I don't know which side is really going to be true just yet. So that makes the lower time frames very difficult for me to trust. A lot of times in my earlier years too, it's like I'd be placed in this situation or predicament where I see both sides and I'd force one side and I'd end up winning and I'd be like, well, yeah, I'm the shit, I'm the man. No, I just got lucky, right? Did I get lucky because, fortunately I was able to learn these concepts. You have to really listen to this. In these concepts, it's very easy to see both sides. It's very easy. And especially if you pick one side or the other, sometimes you end up just being right. And to me, that's not doing a correct job because you weren't waiting for enough evidence to be favorable on one side. You just kind of pressed the button and got lucky. That's where some losses occur as well, as you just press a button and you just hope for the best. That's not a good job either. Again, even in this drop here, I'm not like freaking out or anything like that. It's just, I could have seen the bearish model. I could see where, in hindsight now, if I look in hindsight, well, yeah, we returned into a premium. There's your drop right there. There's your bearish breaker. You're inefficient. It's right there. So you're waiting short. Because I could also see the bullish model. The times when I'm able to execute on one side very easily is when the higher time frame and there's intermarket relationships and there's things that are in agreement. That's really easy for me to ignore the other side and say, look, I don't care about that side. I'm going to execute on this side. This is where narrative and bias on higher time frame comes into play. So where nobody listens, everybody just ignores it, throws it out the window because all you care about is just fair value gaps and when to enter. You're looking at the wrong shit, man. You're looking at the wrong shit, listening to terrible advice. So it looks like we're about to attack London session lows in here. If we get underneath these lows, then my eye catches right about here, some sell side, 21,556. Ultimately, do I believe we're going to run all the way back down to this low in here today? Probably not. If anything, a return into this previous new week opening gap. And once we get there, I kind of probably have to chill out. And the reason for that, if you're paying attention, is from this low up to that high there. That's your previous dealing range. Equilibrium sitting right about there. So if we get beneath equilibrium, we get into this area. Now we're inside of what? A discount. So anytime you get inside of an opposing dealing range, it's where you kind of have to make the decision, okay, well, we're going to have a deeper retracement now. Do I have to chill out? Man, there's so many... I know a lot of people are trading and they're pressing buttons, and this is why I even stated not to do this. If you're really listening, man, and you're just reading and watching what I'm doing here, this is... I'm not trying to brag. This is some shit that I wish I had. Genuinely. Genuinely. ES still hasn't made a lower low underneath the 7 o'clock low. But with this drop lower in here, and because of the bearish SMT at the top and the reaction that we've seen, we may see continuation lower today. Am I certain about that? No. Yeah, so you go there is it's good observation. 5-minute bearish order block there. There's just about 80 likes in here, about 200 of you guys watching. If you could like the video, if you haven't already. Igor, yeah, and that's even where, again, it's even in the moment in time you go back and watch. It's where I think a lot of younger students just don't maybe understand. It's like, it's not that I couldn't see a bearish model, right? It's not like, we pointed that out in the real moment of time. It's a very easy thing to look at. But we also are looking at the bullish perspective as well. In those situations, I don't feel any guilt about not trading a short because I could have equally have seen a bullish model. And to me, pressing into that at that moment in time is gambling. I'm just trying to find something to work, and that's not, even if I shorted it, went down, I made money, that's not a good job in my eyes. For me personally, it's not a good job because I was forcing a model. If I can see both models with clear evidence on both sides, it's very difficult. And you have to be listening to this whole thing to really understand what the hell I'm talking about here. because you have to go back to last night's video with the higher time frame perspective to understand how to trust lower time frame models and how to know which one to choose. If you don't know the higher time frame direction with intermarket relationships paired, with SMT paired, if you don't know these things, then these lower time frame models are very difficult to trust. And when they're 50-50, and I see this one and I see this one, which one do I do? And you just press the button, you get lucky. That's not a job well done. I don't just go into my journal and say, well job, CJ, job well done. No, that's stupid. I got lucky. Yep, make note, you're inside of this macro here, 950 to what? 1010. So there's your macro right here. We're within it. So all I'm trying to, I don't like the word figuring out, but I like the word waiting for currently is, I want to see if we want to continue lower to make a new low here, based off the fact that there's a bearish order block here that we returned into. We have our sell side imbalance, an inversion here that we're retracing into. So I want to see if we want to attack this low in here. On the flip perspective, again, I'm paying attention to how ES still never made that lower low. And I don't know if this is just another run underneath sell side to where we potentially run higher again. When I see all these factors, and I'm even stating it, it's a lot of different sides, a lot of different things I could trade. I just know that's not a good point to be placing a trade. There's just too much. So I have to wait. And if that means missing a move, then so be it. So what's ES doing in here? ES is starting to sell off. $9.40 candle we call reclaimed. Yes. Okay, my charts are not loading, which is not a good thing here. My other monitor, I clicked a 15-second, not loading. That took way too long. It took a whole minute to load. I gotta stay on this. So I don't see anything really clear. I mean, I could see the idea of us seeking the slowdown here, but I don't see any really clear model or something that would instigate me getting into price currently. You're getting TV issues too? Maybe it's just TradingView. My internet seems fine. So I believe we're going to attack this low in here. It's just, there's nothing for me to really enter off of. So there's no entry pattern. I mean, I can go down to a seconds charts and maybe find something. But I do believe we're going to attack this low in here. And if we don't, well, that's simply rules where I don't have anything to enter off of. There's really nothing in here. I'm just trying to read order flow. So, I mean, there's just nothing. There's no sell side imbalance. Is there any entry pattern? No. So I can't just force it and say, well, screw it, I'm going to short it. That's dumb. And the risk reward really is in there. I mean, the closest near side objective would be this low here. If I had to frame a risk reward, it's really not that great. So if I have to miss the move, then so be it. And if prices end up working out, then that's just me simply following rules to where, well, there was nothing there, so it protects me from even entering into the market. What I'm watching is how ES is still trading lower. That's a good, decent sign if I wanted to potentially short this. Is I'm really watching ES to see if it's willing to join NQ lower. That's my kind of discerning factor. So watch for a drop into 21,572-ish. This up close candle here is a bearish order block. Musa, yeah. Do you use midnight opening range? I know it's the newer concept we just taught. No, I don't use it. I know what it is, but I don't see a use for it. Yes, took Asia high earlier. Yep. Yeah, a lot of times ICT will, he has a lot of concepts, a lot of different things you can utilize. You just have to find what works for you. If you like it and it's something that you can use every day. I like things that I can use every day. And not that I couldn't use that every day, but to me it's a confluence. It's not an end-all be-all concept. But that's up to you. If you really like it, use it, man. So far, I mean, returning back into the sell side of bounce? Do we see where we could have taken this low, we drive higher, drop down to this new week opening gap, potentially see a rise out of this? I know this may be confusing, or I know some people that watch this be like, "What? Calling both sides and blah blah." This is me reading order flow. I'm not acting upon any of it until I see something that's like, okay, there's a lot of evidence to where I really want to act on it. The risk to reward is good. The model's there. Entry pattern criteria is there for me to enter on it. This is for me how I at least got to the point of consistent profitability within these concepts, is like being able to watch order flow and seeing a side but not acting on it, and being patient with that and letting go of the fear of actually not being a part of that move. It would do a great deal of service if a lot of you just stop trading these live accounts and these funded accounts, whatever they may be, especially if you have that issue, and just sit down one day and just actually be in the mindset of wanting to take a trade, like you're going to take a live trade, but don't sign on your account, and have a frame, a certain side framed up, like, okay, it's going to go really here. Especially before you take a trade, you really, you're getting that feeling, okay, it's going to go here, I want to enter into it, but don't press anything and just let things play out without you. Because once you see that and you let go of that control idea of always wanting to be a part of the market, I think that's how you overcome the fear of missing out a lot of times. Right? Like, fear of missing out to me is, it's coupled with a lot of things. Obviously, it's an emotion, but I also think it's very logic based. Like, if there's nothing there, there's no reason to enter. If you guys can like the video, I'd appreciate it. We're at 92 likes. If we can get it to 100. Stock Magician, did you take a trade today? Yeah, I think I took, what did I take, guys? 10 already? We're about up $100 million. We made a new low in here. We tacked this low. Damn, man, that hurts. I can go into a psychology rant, but I'm not going to. You're up a bill. Damn, brother. Well, that's an example of reclaimed sell-side imbalance in here. Would I have ever shorted upon a reclaimed in this area? No, that's not part of my model. So looking at the move, even though in hindsight I could have seen where we could have dropped into the sell side, sure, but it's not part of my model. I could have shorted in here and held on, had a stop above that high. That's fine. This is also not part of what I'm really looking for either. But now we're seeing what? We're seeing ES got underneath the 7 a.m. low, which is showing what? Now we're really starting to see, okay, what the true move really is. Where ES is really starting to join NQ with it. Previous new week opening gap is here. We'll see if we trade down into it. Looks like we are. So if this is a continuation of lower prices, then this would be a simple model that I call just a continuation model. There's a continuation, meaning from a dealing range high to low, you're looking for a sell side imbalance inside of a premium. Viking, I get this question a lot. What is your model? What are you looking for? You have to sit with me for multiple months, man. I mean, it's the only way to really understand what I'm looking for. I have multiple models, multiple entry pattern criterias, but to frame a setup, to frame a model I'm comfortable with, you have to listen to things that I'm saying. And obviously, if it's confusing at first or right now, you just have to stick with it. I mean, that's the only way. A model is really nothing, man. Like, I think a lot of people look at that and think that that's their holy grail. Like, once I get my model, man, everything's going to be solved. A model is nothing, really. A model is nothing without context, without framework, without risk management, without proper utilization of it. It's just a way to get into the market. That's all it is. But you can also get into the market plenty of times and never be successful. You want to know when and why a model should work. Your idea or your focus should not be on a model. It should be obviously why the model should work and when it should work. And what are the conditions for it to be favorably to work? And when should I not utilize it? When should I be willing to be, to wait? Those things are important, very much important. When should I not trade? Should it be the most important? That's why ICT said, if he was to create a book, it would be the least selling, and he would title it When Not to Trade, and it would be the least selling book. But yeah, it would be the best book to buy. Everybody's always looking for the way to get into the market. You should be looking for the times not to be in the market, because that will ironically tell you when to get into the market, right? All boring stuff, yeah. I just want to know. I just want a trade idea. Yeah, I get it. What's this up close candle here? This is your bear shorter block, or propulsion block, I would say. What's your thoughts on ICT stop teaching? I think it's a bit bizarre, to be honest. It's a bit abrupt. Based off what he stated in our private group, I mean, I'm not going to put anything out there, but it seems as if him or his family were potentially threatened. I don't know. It's very uncharacteristic of him to abruptly stop like that. I'm watching in here as I'm watching what ES is doing. Glenn, yeah, I'll have to go over it later. Is that FEG at 10.11 too big for a risk reward for short? Basically, yeah. And in the moment of time, I was unsure if price was really going to seek lower prices. It's very important to notate that. It's very easy in hindsight to say, well, look how easy that short is. But you have to remember in the moment of time, the things that were playing out, certain ideas and cases for both sides. That's why I don't ever really place a whole bunch of emphasis on backtesting, or not that backtesting is bad, but I think if you look at it through a lens of what I could have done this, I could have done that, that's a really wrong way to view it. All backtesting should ever be is just for pattern recognition. That's it. Even to look at a day in reverse and say, well, I should have done this or that. That's not the way that these things work. You have to look at it through the lens of what was I thinking in the real moment of time? Is there something that could have changed in the real moment of time in terms of my thinking or perspective? If there wasn't, and you don't think that that will ever change, then you did the job that you were supposed to do. My perspective in this example is like up here during that moment of time, during the first 20 minutes of the opening, especially when I was pointing out the bearish model and bullish model, my perspective will never change on that, ever, probably within these concepts, because I know that will always play out in terms of there's probably going to always be a two-sided perspective at times, and if I can't really build an evidence for one side, then I have to sit out of the move, whatever ends up playing out, and I'm okay with that. So what I want you to make note of is how much NQ and ES they're climbing above these sell side imbalances. I talked about a potential continuation model. Do you see what I'm not touching a whole lot in here? This is very important to note, and you're not seeing this because you're only looking at a 1 minute and a 5 minute. But if you go back to the weekly forecast, this is like why I'm not doing a whole lot currently is because of what we stated yesterday and last night. If the higher time frame is unclear to me, it's very difficult to trade these lower time frames because there's a lot of different models on both sides. It's like, well, which one's going to work? It's very difficult to trust. So I have to be willing to be patient and just sit until I can see something. If not, then I don't do nothing. Everybody's trying to push. Models are the least of your concern, man. I know you're not seeing it and I have it notated, but underneath this low at basically midnight, ES failed to make that lower low while NQ did. What is that? That's a bullish SMT. Where did we drop into? What did NASDAQ drop into? Because I already marked this up earlier. We dropped inside of a discount. So from that dealing range low to high, we dropped inside of this discount and inside of this previous new week opening gap with the potential bullish SMT. So what does that mean? Well, that could give way to higher prices potentially. Potentially. Backtesting should remove those doubts. Well, no. Backtesting is used for pattern recognition, but as I already stated before, I think you can get to a certain point where there's always going to be a two-sided perspective, especially when the higher time frame and other things are unclear, where you have to just say, look, I'm going to submit to the idea of missing out on a potential move that happens. Glenn, I'm not much for gossip or any of that BS, but I see it's great. Yeah, I'll talk about it. I mean, it's something we don't know a whole lot on it, to be honest with you. All I know is he's done teaching, done being ICT. Like, for real. Done. Yes, there's some relative equal highs that are resting right here. Yeah, he has said he's quitting and coming back, but this one was a very, very real, very official, very unlike himself, really. And it was followed up after stating that is something happened to his family. That's all I'm gonna state. Which is not, it's not cool, man. Yeah, they posted in our charter group, so if you're a charter member, you know about it. Danny, what's up, brother? Yeah, I'm not. To be honest, dude, I haven't listened to really anything he stated, or I don't even pay attention to anything he really says. I just saw that and I was very surprised or taken back. So 2025 mentorship is not gonna, no, it's not. Let's see if we can potentially seek these relative equal highs here at 21,636. How much time does it take to be? How much time did it take for you to become profitable? It's just all dependent. I mean, I've been doing this for 7 years now. It probably wasn't until the last year and a half, 2 years. Let's say about 5 years. And it doesn't, consistent profitability is not like just a light switch, and once you reach it, it's forever attainable. I mean, you can always lose it at any given moment in time. You have to be willing to keep working at it every single day, man. You don't just reach it and everything turns into sunshines and rainbows. No, it's every single day for the rest of your career. You will have to work your ass off to maintain it. You have to maintain. It's not something you reach. You have to maintain it. It's constant maintenance. I'm watching to see if we can get some upside in here to this buy side. I'm really watching to see if I can find something to... I'm watching a 15 second and a 30 second. Watching this 15 second inefficiency, this order block, since we left this new week opening gap. I want to see if we can find some leg room. And this is just a short-term target here. I'm going to watch this 15 second inefficiency there. I like the closure. I'm going to see if we can find leg room to that buy side. How we trade above this buy side is going to be very determined if I'm going to keep this on for even way higher prices. We reached above this buy side. I want to see how we trade above it. So do we run back to the first presented FPG? That's what I'm kind of looking at currently. I'll get to the questions. I see a lot of them. I'm just trying to concentrate currently. What's this up close candle here? Or are these both consecutive up close? But just look at this. That'd be your bullish breaker potentially. I would like to see a fast, quick reaction away from this. I want to see a closure above the sell side imbalance that we're in to really feel secure we're going to run into this high up here. Down close candle, there is your bullish order block. We'll see if that has an expansion away from it. And the bullish breaker there. I see a lot of good conversations in there. I'll get back to it because if you want me to rant, that's some good questions in terms of psychology, in terms of the process and the time it takes to be profitable and the endurance. I mean, either you want this shit or you don't. At the end of the day, you know, I've been in the self-loathing, self-pity mindset at times, and we all get that way, especially after going through losing streaks and not being successful and, you know, incurring a lot of losses. But at the end of the day, sometimes you need to be told stop being a bitch. Put on your pants, get back into the game, and do what needs to be done. I mean, that's just all there is. Even after taking in, like, let's say I take a loss here, I don't give a shit, man. I don't give a shit. Sometimes you just tell that bitch voice to shut up, do the work that needs to be done, and that's it. So I gotta see a reaction out of this into some higher prices. It's a little bit hard for me to explain, but there's a lot of things in here that could counter it, but I'm just being patient with it. Watching ES dropped into a 5-minute bullish order block. Dropped into a 1-minute mitigation block, down close candle on ES, order block, inversion. We'll see if ES wants to send it above its relative equal highs at 60, 63. Otherwise, this gets messy. This is getting a little messy in here. We're not finding any sustainability in terms of one-sidedness. We're no longer really respecting bullish PD arrays. So underneath this low, it's got to kind of find some leg room higher, or else this thing collapses or remains sideways. If you can see the flip, we're turning into real high resistance in here. It's not finding leg room. It's utilizing PD arrays over and over again. So everything's still there. Nothing's been negated. My stop's at a place in terms of if it was to go underneath that, then I would be done. Yeah, I think this might be stopped. We're just not finding a leg room. We're not finding what I'm really trying to look for here. So it's getting real messy. I mean, I'm going to leave my stop where it's at, but I believe it's about to be hit here. I think every day so far this year's not been great. I'm just going to be completely honest. I mean, there was one CPI was really great last week, I believe. Besides that, just really these conditions have not been, to me, the best in the world. And you also have to remember, again, this is variance. There's going to be conditions where you're really having favorable times, and it's your personal condition. You love it, man. Not to say it every single week's going to be like that or every single day, but there's months and periods where, man, shit's firing all cylinders, perfect conditions, your model's presenting itself, you're doing great. That's variance. Then there's times where market conditions are not so great. You're not doing so well. So again, this is where you have to rely on variance and just say, look, that's part of the system. But most people, they look at day-to-day results. They look at every inch, every second. You have to look at long periods of data, 6 months, a year, 5 years of data. But after this, I wouldn't really do much with it because it's kind of shown me that, well, obviously, if it was to maintain lower prices, did we return into a reclaimed sell sign of balance? Yes. But the fact that we made this higher high here, to me, we should have maintained higher prices. That should have been seeked. That's the reason why I executed along. I could have taken a partial off at these highs. It just wasn't really a whole lot in there. In terms of risk to reward, I could also not be stopped in here. I mean, this thing could reverse. That's why I have my stop where it's at. But more than likely, I'm about to be stopped. There it is. But at this point, I wouldn't do anything with it. I mean, this is how it's been the last multiple times I've been on live stream. Is like, at this point, we're basically going to do nothing, or we're going to do something I'm not expecting, and I'm not going to touch it. Now, let's just say on this, just for stream's sake, let's say I just got stopped, and some people have this happen plenty of times. You feel like the market's targeting you. I get stopped, the price just starts rolling off higher. Am I going to enter in blindly? No. I would look for a criteria and say, look, maybe my stop was not correct, or something like that. Maybe an unlucky situation happened. I'm not saying right now I'm going to enter in a market, but I'm just stating that scenario. Then I would look at it and say, look, I got stopped out. It was unlucky, unfair. But guess what? I have to re-enter the market with clear logic. If there's no clear logic, then it is what it is. I think your stop was too tight. Maybe it was, Roberto. Maybe. Or maybe it wasn't. But I know my old self would get super pressed about shit and be like, fuck, man, like, even if this thing trades higher, I'm still comfortable with the idea of saying, look, I can still enter this market. There's plenty of ways to get into it. I'm not worried about entries ever. ES is ugly. Excuse me. Stream health is poor now. That's better. Really, what I'm watching, I'm seeing that obviously it may have been stopped, and maybe a stop was too tight, obviously. So if I can find something that would re-enter into it, then sure. Not NQ did you dirty. Yeah, I mean, that's, again, this type of things, this is just variance, but you also have to look at variance in a positive factor. I mean, there's a lot of times where you don't annotate or notate the times where you got out of price right before the price reversed, you got out the tick, something like that, where there was luck on your side. I mean, if you look at that, I mean, that's some shit that's just hilarious. Like, I just find that funny. And some people, well, your stop was too tight, you could have placed it. Well, yeah, no shit. There's always hindsight, but I can't predict that. I placed my stop underneath the logical low. I could have placed it underneath the new week opening gap. I could have placed it underneath here. I could have thrown it all the way down here if I wanted to. But I didn't. So that type of thinking, to me, it doesn't do you any service. Well, I could have done this. It means nothing. And also be upset about that and be like, that would invoke a lot of emotions of my younger self. Be like, dude, I got stopped out by literally a tick. It's like, it just is what it is. Market is not fair. funny the comments that I get. It's like, if somebody's sitting over your shoulder, if I sat over your shoulder, man, like, one of the things I could be saying to you, well, you should have done this, bro. You should have done that. Should have moved your stop over there. Shouldn't have taken that trade. Like, people are so funny. To me, the price is just aimlessly trading. What am I doing a good job of? I'm doing a good job of not letting emotions take over me by a stop out, by a little tick. Not re-entering the market. There's nothing clear for me to re-enter into it. I don't see anything clear. I still think price is just kind of aimlessly trading currently. So, but if I let emotions take over me, if I don't see that rise of emotions, that's the number one thing you need to be noting, is watching the rise of your emotions. What does that mean? Well, you have certain signals and patterns that happen to you that you don't recognize before an emotion takes over. Things you say out loud, the thoughts you have, certain actions, tapping the desk, tapping your mouse, leaning close to the monitor. If you're not catching these rising of these emotions, or certain things that happen to you, like a stop out like that, or missing a trade, these certain things are your first signal that an emotion is starting to arise in you. And if you don't catch that, then it will take over you. What is, oh, look at this one. Boom. So this is, it's called injecting logic statement. If people, again, I know most people are just here for signals or learning or whatever, but it's more about psychology for me. What does this state? You can't control variance, only how you respond to it. So I can't control that variance. The only way I can control is how I respond to it. How do I respond to it? Well, I remain calm. Think from a logical state, not emotionally. And I say, look, if there's something for me to re-enter, to realign myself with the original bias, I will. If not, I don't do anything with it. It has to be clear. It cannot just be a half-ass entry. It has to be clear. What is that doing? Well, I can't control variance. I can't control when something like that happens. Can I make an adjustment and say, look, maybe I could have placed my stop somewhere different? Sure. But there's going to be times where you place your stop perfectly and it still hits it by a tick, it still reverses. It's just variance. I can't control it. Only how I respond to it. Okay, what do you mean by that? Oh, my journal routine. A lot of my daily logs are my journal routines. It's really, in a sense, how I journal. I like talking more than I like writing or typing. If I was to do a journal, like personally, I would do videos. When I used to do videos, I would just personally talk. I'd sit down with a video camera and I would just talk about my day, about the things that happened, what emotionally has happened that day, and then trying to make improvements, adjustments on it. If there isn't, then you congratulate yourself, you be a good cheerleader, and you move on to the next day. So we're about to move into the macro here. 1050 to 1110. We'll see if anything happens within this. But currently it looks like we're just aimlessly kind of trading. We're just moving sideways. We're not moving higher or lower. So is that a good spot to pick something? No. And what would happen if, if I let emotions take over me? I'd be trying to go long, then trying to maybe flip it short, all of these things. But if I was actually thinking from a logical perspective, nothing is really playing out. Even if I was still in that long, I'd be like, damn, this is just terrible price action. I'd really would rather favorably not be a part of it. So well, did you say you can type it, or you can't talk it out more than you could type it, or vice versa? Yeah, I mean, I feel that way too. I don't like. That's the reason why I like talking. That's why I like doing videos. I don't really like posting things on Twitter because I just don't like typing. I don't like doing it. It's more work. Like, to be honest, I like talking because I just can say whatever the hell I want to say. It comes out of me free flowing. It's easier. I recommend doing video journals over anything. And especially journaling, don't make it super hard on yourself. If you make it too hard, you set the bar too high, you're not going to end up doing it. Make it very low. Just say, look, I'm going to do a 5-minute journal every single day. Something super easy. And just be done with it. So within this macro, if I had to look at the bearish perspective, we've taken this buy side liquidity here, took it again within, we're still within the sell side imbalance and still within this bearish order block here. We reclaimed this first presented 5-minute. It's kind of so-so, man. I mean, I would have to make the case from here that we're going to run to this low, which I don't know. Well, yeah, I think a lot of people definitely can, including myself. ES has a whole bunch of buy side above it. At least if you look at the 1 minute, right around 60,063. I'm watching a 15-second. I do believe we're possibly going to run within this macro to this high here. It's 21,650, possibly. I like this 15-second. I'm gonna have a little bit wider stop this time underneath this low. 1 minute inversion. We'll see. It's underneath the new week opening gap. I like ES's buy side, so we'll see if it wants to attack that or not. And the reason I'm entering is within the macro. Do you eat protein based when it's time to trade? What does that even mean? ICT posts a video that's actually really interesting. These two down close candles should support price higher if we're going to seek it. Let me see what he posted. My computer's kind of lagging out here. Probably shouldn't do that. My computer's completely frozen, so I have no idea what's going on. Live execution video. I don't. Is this dude just trolling us, man? I'm done trading, and then he goes back. JH, yeah, I do have to remember that. Let's see if we can run to this high here at 21,650. How we trade above that, I'll see if I want to carry this on. I can reduce my stop to underneath this low here now. I'm observing ES. ES still has its relative equal highs, and the reason I'm observing ES is because ES is the stronger one overall, so I want to see it. It's another point to why I took the trade is if ES is the stronger one, it has relative equal highs above it, and it also has a model, then I'm going to be trusting NQ as well. If we just range in here and we don't do anything, I mean, this thing's just stuck in the mud today, and it's not willing to do anything. Glenn, yeah, it's a good example or analogy for sure. Yeah, we just don't want to find any room for any upside or downside today. I could remove my stop back to the original, but I'm going to leave it. I'm just going to be done here. I'd rather take just a shorter stop out. We're just not willing to move in a certain direction, man. It's been aimless. But again, I can't look at that through a lens and say, look, I'm a shitty trader. No, I executed on a certain model, and some people have different opinions. It is what it is. But we're just aimlessly trading, so there's nothing else I can really do about it. That's where you just hang it up. For me, 2 max trades, especially in a condition like this, that's it. I could have moved my stop underneath this low, underneath the new week opening gap. I'm just not going to open myself up to any more risk, man. I mean, we're doing absolutely nothing. We're just ranging. So what's the point of opening myself up to more risk? So that's really going to be it, man, for today's live stream. And we'll be back here tomorrow. I'm not worried. We have Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday the rest of the week. So see what this week provides. And until tomorrow, peace out, everybody.